Hey my friends, Al-Yassa coming to you with no hype, no fluff, and no BS. And I am doing the video response to the questions that I asked you yesterday, which was basically what is your biggest frustration about where you are financially. Now, if you're seeing this at a later time and you want to comment below, go right ahead, and I'll just make sure I keep up with the thread. But let's go. So we have this question here. Barely making money, okay, working, but barely covering expenses, and really don't have anything for unexpected emergencies. So I understand the frustration with that. What you want to do in that situation is you've got to be able to find a way to create an emergency fund. All right, that emergency fund is not your regular savings account. It's cash. It's not a credit card. It's just some money you can put aside so that when these things come up, bam, you can pay for it. In the past, some people say if you have a credit card, put it in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the back of the freezer so you don't use it. Then an emergency comes, then you can use it or something like that. But it should be a cash account. So let's say you have a bank account and you got a checking and savings. You might want to create a sub account to your savings account, right? And maybe 5-10% of your income, or 5 or 10% of whatever you're saving, can go into that account. Just let it build up over time, and you create what's called an emergency account. But I know it's hard to do if you don't even have anything extra coming in. All right, so the other question we have is, I want to be able to get out of debt without declaring bankruptcy, chapter 7 or chapter 13. I definitely know where you're coming from on this one. I remember when I was going through, me and my wife was going through our situation. That's something I didn't want to do either. I have friends that have done it, and it kind of worked out for them. They say once you do it, you're jacked up for like 7 years on your credit or what have you. I don't know, because I didn't do it, and I didn't do it for a couple reasons. Number one, it could have been an ego thing where I don't want to declare bankruptcy or what have you. Number two, you got to pay a lawyer for that, and I didn't. If I'm in this situation, I didn't have money to pay a lawyer for that, to do that process. So for me, what I found was everything can be handled with a conversation. All right, they might not like your answer or like your conversation, but I always found that once I communicated with the different creditors, like, hey, you know what, I understand the situation. I'm gonna get handle it as best as I can. It's just that right now you want $1,000. I don't have $1,000 to give you. So in this situation, and not to make light of it, but what you want to do is get all the details. All right, get all the requirements of what a chapter 7 would entail, what a chapter 13 would entail. Get all that, have all that information in front of you, and then just ask yourself a question. Okay, how long have I been in this situation and I haven't declared? Can I turn this around? And just be honest with yourself. So that's where I would start. I know, like I said, I have friends that have done it, and did it work for them? I guess. Let's say one young lady, she's a couple years removed from it right now, but she's having a hard time reestablishing her credit. She's having a hard time going after different things that she wants. So I don't have a definitive answer for you on that. That's a personal choice. But what I would say do is get all the information for 7 and 13, lay it all out, then ask yourself how long I've been in this situation, and can I turn it around without declaring? All right. The other question is, I am working full-time and I don't have enough money to pay the bills. All right. 3 reasons as to why that is. Number 1, cost of living keeps going up. Number 2, inflation keeps going up. And number 3, whatever raise you used to get or you are getting is not enough to match the cost of living and inflation. That's why you slowly get behind the 8 ball and you wonder, what the heck is going on? I've been making this amount of money, I've been living, but every year I'm getting further and further behind the 8 ball. That's why. The other thing is you have to look at whether or not you are in are you maxing out your pay level for the job that you're in. A lot of times we have low-paying jobs, whether it's a lot of retail jobs or what have you, and you might be maxed out of what they could possibly give you unless you go the management track. And if that's something you're considering, you might want to consider doing that. If not, it's time to really look and assess your situation and see where you want to go. Do you want to keep your job and then maybe start something on the side that could supplement your income, or do you want to just make a whole new move and, for lack of a better term, climb the corporate ladder or what have you? All right. And the other question was planning for retirement. Getting up there in age and planning for retirement. What should I do? Well, the common formula that people use for when they're talking about retirement is the rule of 72. And what that means is, if you want to double your money, okay, at a certain percentage, let's say 8%. So let's say you wanted to double, you got $10,000 in the bank and you want to know how long it's going to take to double to $20,000 at 8% interest. Well, if you divide that 8% interest by, or 72 by the 8% interest, that's 9. So in 9 years, your 10 grand will double to 20 grand. And, you know, let's say somebody's 50 years old and they only have 30 grand saved up. That means by the time they're 59 at 8% interest, that 30 will grow to 60. But they're not going to retire off of $60,000. What I like to do is I like to work backwards. I like to say, okay, how much do you want to live off of per year in your retirement? Okay, then you figure, if you use a round number like 10%, okay, so let's say you you want to live off of $50,000 a year in retirement, because you figure you're older, your needs, you know, you'll probably accumulate everything you needed by then. So $50,000 a year at the 10% interest rate. If you hit, let's see how much money you need saved up at a 10% interest rate, you know, without working to bring in 50 grand, it's 500,000, right? Is that realistic? No, it's not, because you're going to be hard pressed to find even 1% in a bank account. So you have to use alternative investments if you use that model. So let's say you are past your 40s and you're like, yo, retirement is getting close. What am I going to do? Well, what I would do is, again, get that number. Let's say you want to live off 100 grand a year. At 10% interest, you know you need $1 million in the bank somewhere. You need $1 million somewhere generating that kind of a return. That $1 million might be in a multi-unit apartment building, right? It might be in an individual, index universal life insurance policy, you know. But how will you be able to get $1 million policy, you know, to be able to do that and kick off 10% or what have you? So that's what you really got to look at. You have to look at what realistically do you want to be living off of per year, and what is your fastest way to get to that big number so that you can live off of that number. So in my opinion, the fastest way is you're going to have to start a business. You're going to have to start a business some way, shape, or form, okay? Whether it's, I know a lot of people are attracted to network marketing. A lot of people are attracted to, selling their own ideas, their own creations, whatever it is. You're going to have to find a way to make a business model work for you so that it's throwing off enough cash for you to be able to live off of. Like a couple years ago, I came up with this thing called the $10,000 solution. And I came up with it because a friend of mine, they were wealthy. And the father got sick. Got sick like overnight, bam, couldn't talk anymore, this, that, the other. Mom, she didn't work. She worked, but she worked at a nonprofit part-time, you know, because dad was the breadwinner. He made all the money, he had all the contacts. And they had him in a nurse, what did they have? They had him in a nursing home. They didn't like the care, so they brought him home, and they wanted to have home care. But that was going to cost them like $7 grand a month. Now, they didn't know how they were going to pay for it. They had a house at the shore that was worth $1 million. They didn't want to sell it, you know. So I said to them, I said, look, you know, you got to find a way where if you could find a way with all the money that you guys have, if you could leverage, don't sell the house at the shore, get some money out of it, go buy a couple pieces of real estate, go buy an apartment building so they can generate 10 grand a month for you. And there, you got 10 grand a month coming in. You can take care of dad at home for 7 grand a month. You still got 3 grand extra that you can either put back into your investments or what have you, you know? So that's how I came up with the $10,000 solution. You know, I believe that for retirement, what we need is some kind of vehicle throwing off enough cash to sustain our lifestyle. That's my belief for retirement. So I hope I answered your questions. Hopefully this was valuable information to you. And what I'd like for you to do is comment below with your responses or what have you. But more importantly, if you would like to have a webinar or a video, whether it's live or recorded, I don't know which one I'll do, depending on my time. If you would like to have a recorded video on credit, the basics of credit, I call it Credit 101, or in the other presentation on debt. 7 steps to eliminate your debt. Okay, so if you would like to see webinars or a recorded video on both of those, let me know below, and I'll make sure that I take care of that for the group. All right, fam? Take care. Talk to you soon. Peace.